Greetings and salutations, I'm Mr. Pink, also known as Modern Synthesist, and this is another episode of Xenos Alchemist, the Modern Synthesist podcast. If you've been following the podcast for a while, you know I don't post episodes that frequently, mostly because this was a great idea my brother had, and then he went and had a kid and a house. So it's just me producing it now, but because I pay for hosting fees for this podcast, I thought I'd try something a little different by just putting out some episodes that are taken from our weekly streams that we have every Friday afternoon, the Creature Conference. This week we had a conversation about the recent statement that Games Workshop released about there being no place for hate in the Warhammer community. If you're interested in seeing the full video, it is on the Modern Synthesis YouTube channel. It's the November 19th stream. And just to be clear, I'm talking with Hydra and Flynnhammer here. And we're live.
Boom, 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 boom.
Boom, boom, boom. Although
and
this week
we have Montmenegan already here, so we have two Germans.
Good, because we're down one German.
Yeah.
For anyone who tunes into the stream normally, High Fleet Moloch will sadly not be joining us.
Yeah, what a shame that Mighty Moloch is not joining tonight.
What a shame.
But,
did you have something you wanted to share with him, specifically?
He's well, I always enjoy his stories of Rick Priestley's basement.
Okay, so I've had this thing in the back of my mind where, like, I pay for podcast hosting, and I never use it. Like, the Xenos Alchemist podcast just sits there. So what I was thinking about doing was, if I've got this, like, hosting service, hosting podcasts anyway, maybe I just take the audio from this thing and just, like, dump it on there, and people can listen to it if they want or not.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? Would you be down?
Yeah, go for it.
Are you currently giving me permission to put more of your likeness onto the internet?
Do you want me to write it down? I hereby give Modern Synthesis Flynnhammer's permission to put his voice on a podcast.
I'm sure that a contract drawn between our two fake identities would definitely hold up in internet court.
The internet court.
Where every lawsuit is resolved in internet cookies. Simon's favorite treat.
Yes.
Also, oh shit. I wasn't planning on mentioning this, but happy Trans Awareness Week. This week is Trans Awareness Week.
Yeah.
If you're not that aware about trans stuff, maybe you should be, because there's a lot of really talented trans artists in the community. And that kind of leads us into one of the things I wanted to talk about, which is not being a dick to trans people in the community and combating hate in the Warhammer community. Because in case you missed it, Games Workshop put up a juicy little, I don't know what juicy. They put up a thing today in the vein of Warhammer for Everyone. I don't know if you remember Warhammer for Everyone. It has been a year and a half since it came out. But in case you remember Warhammer for Everyone, something like that. But a new statement could be reactionary, because there was some weird shit going on in a Spanish tournament lately. If you don't follow our good friend Wilbur Waitley on Instagram, or I don't know if he goes on and off Twitter, but he documented it. Oh, I think he's back on Twitter, because he posted about this on Twitter, where there was some jerkface at a Spanish tournament who was wearing, like, this really weird design that was basically taking a bunch of swastikas and, like, cutting pieces off of them and being like, oh no, they're not swastikas. And they were clearly swastikas.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a bit of an ass. Yeah, so he shared that because he's all up in the Spanish stuff. And I guess Bargase is saying that the statement from Games Workshop could be a reaction to that. So this is actually, I'm glad Box is here, because I didn't know that this thing went up until I saw it on Box's story. So thanks, Box. Games Workshop put up a statement today. They posted it on their Twitter, on their Facebook. They did not post it on their Instagram. I don't know that it's on their Twitch or anything like that, but it's a link to an article on the Warhammer community site that is titled, "The Imperium is driven by hate, period. Warhammer is not, period." And then it goes on to, like, say these kind of sweeping statements about the situation where there's, like, a big bold headline that says there are no goodies in the Warhammer 40k universe, period. And then not bolded beneath it, none, period. And then it says in bold, especially not the Imperium of Man, period. And then unbolded beneath it, numberless legions of soldiers, zealots, bludgeoning their way across the galaxy, blah, 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 blah. Basically how all of this in the slavish servitude of a living corpse of a god emperor whose commandments are at best only half-membered, twisted by time and the fallibility of humanity. Warhammer isn't just grimdark, it's the grimmest, darkest. But then it goes on to like, the Imperium of Man stands as a cautionary tale of what could happen should the very worst of humanity's lust for power and extreme unyielding xenophobia set in. Like so many aspects of Warhammer 40k, the Imperium of Man is satirical. And then they go to explain satire. Yeah, so it's weird because the statement like talks about how it's almost like it's feeding directly into those weirdos who show up on the internet and talk about how the Imperium
Yeah, I
of Man
think
is
it's deliberately done that way.
Yeah, but like
It's just to basically go to tell these people in the most simplest term way possible so they can understand this is a game. This is made up. This is not real.
I push back against your statement of simplest way possible because to me this looks like the most convoluted way possible. This looks like someone's doing a book report on the Imperium of Man and then using that as proof for the angry neckbeards that the Imperium of Man is not a good thing. Okay, sure, but there's an expression, I think it's from journalism, called burying the lead. And I think the Games Workshop has buried the lead here because they're like, let's talk about how the Imperium of Man is a bad thing.
Yeah.
And how we're satirizing like the worst parts of human nature. Then let's talk about what satire is.
Yeah.
And then like halfway down the page of this novel, they say, we've said it before, but a reminder about what we believe in. So, point, has anyone seen them say this before? Because they've said Warhammer for everyone, and they posted some stuff, but they have this like quoted paragraph here, which I'll read, that I've never seen before.
This is actually an excerpt from the Warhammer for Everyone post. Yeah. I remember those the wording of it.
Oh, okay. I didn't remember those
paraphrased, but they've gone like, we don't condone prejudice, hatred, or abuse in our company or in the Warhammer community.
Maybe it's the paraphrasing that's thrown me off.
Yeah.
What they say here is, in quotations, their values. We've said it before, but a reminder about what we believe in. We believe in and support a community united by shared values of mutual kindness and respect. Our fantasy settings are grim and dark, but that is not a reflection of who we are or how we feel the real world should be. We will never accept nor condone any form of prejudice, hatred, or abuse in our company or in the Warhammer hobby. If you come to a Games Workshop event or store and behave to the contrary, including wearing symbols of real-world hate groups, you will be asked to leave. We won't let you participate. We don't want your money. We don't want you in the Warhammer community. I feel like those two paragraphs are what this statement is about. And I feel like when we got the Warhammer for Everyone statement, they kind of came out with that in a much more like condensed version and kind of just like punch you in the face with what they were saying. And this feels like, to me, like the draft for the Warhammer for Everyone is for everyone statement, where there's all this like mumbo jumbo at the beginning about the Imperium of Man, and then finally they come to it and say like, hey, this is not cool.
What I do like about it is they've now put it into place of, if you're doing this, we will remove you. They've given basically event staff, store managers and stuff, the ability to basically go, no, get out. They've actually gone to them. It's not before where it's a bit like, ooh, yeah, how is it and stuff, but it's like, if you're not telling them to get out.
Like, they've said that, but they haven't. They also go further down this paragraph where they're like, oh, and tournament organizers, you shouldn't allow these things either. And like, if you need some help from Games Workshop and prize support, contact us. But they haven't, like, it's all words. They haven't put together any kind of like information kit or like strategies or like tools that you could actually use to like declare what the values of a tournament are, and then like a code of conduct for people, and if they don't meet the conduct, like certain consequences that will be taken. I get that this could be like a first step from them and they're working on all that stuff, but this very much to me sounds like Games Workshop being like, hey, we think this stuff is bad, and we want to tell you that we think this stuff is bad, and tournament organizers, you should also think this stuff is bad, and you should enforce that this stuff is bad. But we're not going to help you enforce that this stuff is bad.
When Warhammer for Everyone first came out, it was like a knee-jerk reaction to what everything else was going on. All other companies were doing it. If we don't do it, we look like we're not part of it. We're not supporting it.
I hoped it was more than that, actually, but they proved me wrong.
Yeah, the After Effects shown it. This is them actually it looks like we've taken the time from Warhammer for Everyone to actually come up with something a bit more substantial to it. But again, it's going to be time will tell if this actually works or not, because regardless of if they do it or not, you're still going to have people in their own little enclaves and just be still doing the stuff, still playing Warhammer and still being absolute douchebags.
Yeah, and they're going to be easy. It's easier for them to stay in those enclaves because so far this has been posted on Twitter, Facebook, the Warhammer Community page, but nowhere else. So if you want to pretend that this doesn't exist and sit under your rock and put your fingers in your ears and go la 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 la, hate is great, you could do that. I do some work in social media. If I have an important message, I post it on all of my organization's platforms. Like, I'm not talking about Warhammer here. I'm talking about like a real world organization. Yeah. And this is the same thing that I felt the last time the Games Workshop came out with this, that they put it on Twitter, they put it on Facebook, and granted, maybe that's where they get the most hateful comments, but people in the wake of Warhammer for Everyone, they literally said, this has only been posted to Twitter and Facebook. Games Workshop hasn't put it anywhere else. This is not, they don't really mean this. It's not a real thing. They're not going to be sticking to it. So people use that as like evidence that they didn't have to worry about what Games Workshop was saying in this regard. So every time that they don't post it in those places, every time that they don't print it on a giant banner and hang it over Warhammer World, like, what, it's, to me, this is just another Warhammer for Everyone. When you said like they've made some progress, they've given some thought, they've come further, I just see this as like warming it over, like taking the leftovers out of the fridge, warming it over, sticking it up on the internet again, and being like, we're doing something. And it's like, cool, what are you doing? It's like, we're doing the same thing we were doing in June of 2020, 18 months ago. That's what we're doing.
I'm just half expecting some YouTuber with a terrible accent.
Fuck that guy. Who cares? Let's not even talk about him. Honestly, yeah, he's gonna do some stupid shit. I don't even know if he's still around. I don't even know if he still has a channel because I really don't give a fuck. But yeah, some morons on YouTube are gonna talk about how they did a letter writing campaign and crashed the website. And yeah, you go right ahead with your little fantasy.
What I'm asking myself is, I can totally understand your perspective.
Yeah.
On that, but I would say no, I would not say. I think that since you have spent so much time and energy thinking about all those things, that is, I can understand that you are sort of, let's put it friendly, you're waiting and see what they make of it.
Yeah.
But I would be interested in the perspective on that thing from someone who is very recent to the community and just getting into all that.
Mm-hmm.
To see how they take it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if we are sort of the prime target.
As
Games
white
Workshop
dudes of fairly decent privilege, I would say that we should be the target group for this.
Yeah, but to be honest, I'm all about models, and I like Games Workshop models, and I'm using them, and I used to work for them, but I am not getting any news whatsoever if it wasn't for someone posting stuff from them. Because I'm not.
Oh, okay. So like you're not a new customer that they're looking to attract.
That's for that bit.
So what I would be interested how people take that are, I don't know, studying and 25 and white and male. So this is the first perspective I would be interested how they sort of the main group which I'm counting myself not into. Of customers is regarding this topic, or how they react to this statement. And the other side I would be interested in is the side that has been affected negatively before. So does anyone who has been, I don't know, assaulted or called names or whatever at a Games Workshop before, do they now feel different about the whole thing? Does that change anything for them? Or are they, because I feel like, yeah, we can rant about it or we can, whatever, but I feel it's not meant for me.
I take it as being meant for all members of the Games Workshop community.
I get what you're both saying. It's like, it's for basically everyone should read this and know that's what the company stands for.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for unique, but with Simon, I know what you're saying is this is more of for certain members of our community who feel like they're ostracized for being who they are, whether it's if they fall in the LGBTQ spectrum, if they are like autistic or something else, what their race, their ethnicity, their religion, or whatever it is to more be like, no, you're a welcome member of the community. Overall, yeah, it's good that they're making another post again, but they need to follow through, regardless of anything. They need to follow through on what they're setting out here. And as what you said earlier, Nick, just reading the bottom bit again, it's a whole thing of, if you're doing an event, we'd love to help you with it. It's like a whole, well,
Yeah, and then
your
the
whole
other
sentiment is that, and then you've got like the whole.
The other thing that really pissed me
out.
off at the very bottom of this post is they post this thing called the Warhammer Alliance. I'm like, holy shit, they're starting a Warhammer Alliance? They're going to be like openly allies for people who need allies, be it
Oh, no,
LGBT.
no.
Wait,
That's not what it is.
Wait, Flynn, wait.
Oh.
So this is what I thought it was
Oh.
when I first saw it, because like you have gay-straight alliances where people who are straight ally themselves with people who are gay, and they look out for each other, and they stand in solidarity. And you can have allies for people who are racialized and living with discrimination. You can be allies. So I was like, Warhammer Alliance, great, sounds fantastic. So then I went and read what it was. And it's basically, we're going to push our product on the youngest kids possible for free, and we're going to disguise it as creative support. It's basically like working with scouts and like school teachers to get Warhammer into the classroom, which is fucking insidious. Like, let me tell you, as a small child who was brought into Warhammer by my drug pusher friends, like, that is fucking insidious. That's like Nintendo being like, don't worry, teachers, we're going to bring the Wii and the Switch into your classroom, and it's going to be totally educational. Does anyone else feel weird about Games Workshop pushing miniatures to kids and treating it as educational?
They've been doing it for years.
Oh, I think this is a UK thing that never made it over here.
Yeah, it's like, because it's currently only UK only, but
like they talk about spending billions. Do they say billions or millions? I think they say they spend millions of pounds, and I'm like, oh great, on like moving forward these causes that we're talking about in this message. No, on pushing our product to little kids.
Yeah,
in school.
It's also because like, I don't know if you have like a Duke of Edinburgh award in the UK.
Okay.
Where you have to do like you do expedition where you do like hiking or canoeing or something else, and then you've got 3 other bits where you've got to do like a volunteering, a sport, and a skill. Games Workshop has advertised itself as you can do Warhammer as your skill. So, and they have actually made a little pack for it. So you can go like, oh yeah, get your starter kit, make the models, paint your models, play a game with the models over like the course
Can
of time.
anyone do that? Can any like corporation be like, oh, we're doing a Duke of Edinburgh thing?
So there has to be there's actually certain things too. I don't know the ins and outs, but it has to fall into one of like the categories and stuff. So like hobbyist stuff, it does fall into it. Normally some people do like cooking or musical instrument as a skill.
Yeah.
Something like that. But it's just Warhammer's an easy one to do if you're already into the hobby, or it's like an easy way for schools to go. Just to make it easier, all of you guys, we're going to do this for it.
Don't leave your basement.
Oh God! You've got to go on the hike.
Do you guys watch Sex Ed or Sex Education on Netflix?
No.
There is a character in it named Warhammer Dad. Because it's set in the UK, and of course in the UK they know enough about Warhammer for it to be like a joke name for some nerdy kid. I don't know if it's Dan, but there's Warhammer someone. It's fucking amazing. Yeah. It's so good.
Well, I have to admit I'm a bit torn regarding that, because on the one side I would love to have like a tabletop club, not a Games Workshop club, but a tabletop club in my school, so that the kids have something else than video games to talk about.
Yeah.
Because they, video games promote themselves So I was talking to colleagues of mine about the idea of having a tabletop club at my school,
Yeah.
and yeah, that it's weird because on the one side, lots of the younger colleagues are like, yeah, that's a great idea, and as we who have grown old or have been attracted to this hobby as young kids can see its benefits, and we are now the grown-ups, and now we can. I talked back and forth. I'm not sure if I can pull this through. I would basically start with calling this whole thing "Let's Build Terrain" or Diorama
Yeah.
Club,
Yeah.
and then eventually turn it into, "Hey, we've built this diorama, and now we can play with it."
So you're gonna like Trojan horse Warhammer into your let's build a diorama club.
Stop. Get your drinks because I would worm Stargrave and Frostgrave into that.
Oh my god, here we go. In Rick Priestley's basement?
Drink. So my basic idea is just to finish this off, is to sell it to my other teachers.
Yes.
Because Frostgrave and Stargrave can be played cooperatively. So you can say we play this game together against the game itself, and we don't have to kill each other.
Yeah.
So that would be my devious plan to sell it.
Ah, it's like friendly kumbaya game.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have to cooperate to get this whole thing done, and therefore, blah blah.
Educational noises.
Yes, therefore it's educational. Now leave me alone with my toy soldier.
One of the things I don't know, I kind of wanted to talk about, but like, you know, this might be boring, but this is definitely not miniature related. This is more like diversity, equity, inclusion related, which I give a shit about, and which I do some work related to in my day job. Flynn was mentioning before that like there was like the reactionary posts after the murder of George Floyd in June of George Floyd was murdered at the end of May in 2020, and then at the beginning of June there was those posts from like every brand out there about how they stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter and people of color. And like that was a good first step, but then like the whole thing was like, what did those organizations do after that? So the organization I worked for, we posted a message of solidarity around that time, and then we actually got to work on it. Like we have had, I think I outlined this in my story, but we have had 3 to 4 4-hour trainings relating to diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm a member of a volunteer kind of like task force thing that is looking at how we describe our work and do we use equitable language, and like are we representing equity seeking, equity deserving groups, are we representing them accurately, like all this stuff, blah 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 blah. But what I'm trying to say is that the work doesn't stop with posting those statements. That Games Workshop posted a statement about this shit back in June of 2020, and I was really surprised. I was really excited. That's amazing. But my first thought was like, okay, but like, what more are you going to do? And it was only posted on Twitter. It was only posted on Facebook. I don't think it was even posted on Warhammer Community. So like, good up to Games Workshop. They made one step forward. But it never went anywhere. And like, after those posts moved off their feeds, you couldn't really see anything about Warhammer for everyone. So now, like, we've taken a little step forward in that now there's a blog post that you can link to, and that will live on. But there's no indication that Games Workshop has done any of the work internally that needs to be done. Like, they can say nice things like this into the wind all they want, but they need to also do extra work internally, like the work that my company's doing. And the work that my company's doing is slow, and it should be going faster, but at least it's happening. When I see this statement about hate has no place in Warhammer 40k, that's why I ask, like, well, what resources are you developing for tournament organizers when you tell them that they shouldn't allow people or who use hate symbols or whatever into their tournaments? I want to know what other work Games Workshop's doing.
Let's have some red shirts standing there in case someone with weird ideas shows up. And then you have some underpaid red shirts saying, no, you cannot take part in this because you are a crazy dumbass.
But like the thing is,
crazy dumbass goes back to his friends and says, ooh.
As we've mentioned before, we're all white guys. The majority of the people in this hobby are white guys because white guys tend to have, you know, disposable incomes when they're young and get into Warhammer and shit. And they have parents who don't get mad when they spend money on stupid shit like Warhammer. We are white guys, and the majority of the people at Games Workshop in their studio, like in their shop, whatever, are white guys. So like, not advocating that we need to like have like hiring quotas or any shit like that, but I'm advocating that Games Workshop needs to own that they have work to do, because they have a very white, very male experience going on there, and they need to work to diversify that and challenge it and train people on like, because like racism, sure, everyone knows what racism is, but not everyone knows what a microaggression is. Like when someone shows up in your office and you look at them and they go, and you go, oh, where are you from? And they're like, oh yeah, I'm from Luton or Buckinghamshire or something like that. And then you go, no, but like, where are you really from? And like what you're asking is like, what is your ethnic background? That's called a microaggression. That's a way of singling someone out because of their ethnicity, and it's not okay. And that's the kind of stuff you learn about in these trainings, and that's the kind of stuff that you have to learn to challenge. And Games Workshop's not going to figure that shit out on their own unless they actually like do the work. I just want them to do the work internally, and I want them to do even more work externally to make this. I want to see this statement in White Dwarf. I want to see it hung up over the gaming hall at Warhammer World. This would be progress for me. What do you guys think?
Or just going further than that, I'd say have a sticker in every single store on the door, like a big A4 size sticker.
Yeah.
So it's
Shit,
right there.
put a pride flag up there, man.
I remember they used to have before, like, it was a rules in the store sort of thing.
Oh,
But
I don't remember that.
I remember years ago, and would you sometimes when we had like hobby nights at the club, if someone would break the rules, they had to stand up and read the rules out.
Oh.
But that was a store I was in where it was actually like, yeah, this stuff was not tolerated.
Hydra, did you guys have this?
No.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't put up a pride flag unless you're ready to like do like intensive pride training, but I'm just saying that it's a good start, but you got to keep moving.
Yeah.
Like one of the greatest
right.
things that I've ever learned in all of this is that you can never be post-racist. You will never be finished this work. You have to keep doing this work for the rest of your life, because we're imperfect and we're going to fuck up and we're going to like miss things, or new things are going to come up. Like trans issues were not a huge issue when I was growing up. We didn't talk about it, but now it is. So you have to keep learning and keep understanding new things. Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to keep evolving.
But that, honestly, I feel like that was my biggest revelation for equity work and diversity work and like anti-racist work, is that I used to think that you could reach a point where you're not racist. Capital N, capital R, not racist. You're past it. You're living in a post-racist society. Everything's great. But that's just turning like a blind eye to like different things that are coming up. Like you have to keep checking yourself and making sure that you are doing good work and that you're not doing anything that's dumb. Something that was a joke on a sitcom in like 2016 or something could now be inappropriate. So like that's why we have to keep working at it. Is this making sense?
Yep.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Absolutely.
It's not to say that you're always shit. It's saying that you're always doing better. Like you're always working to do better. So good thing that Games Workshop's posting something. But when I was reflecting on this, and I was reflecting on the work that like we've had to do at my organization, I feel like the world has moved on from just posting like statements like this. Like after the murder of George Floyd, everyone posted these statements. And then all the people who were protesting for Black Lives Matter were like, okay, that's cool, but like, what are you actually doing about this work? And then all the corporations were like, oh shit, we actually have to do some stuff about this. So like they started doing like, my wife moves in circles that could coincide with people who are hired to do equity, diversity, and inclusion training and stuff like that. And she has just seen job after job after job after job after job posted for like diversity officers or like people to like come in and do these trainings. She has friends who do these trainings, and like these are women of color who basically have to re-traumatize themselves telling white people about why racism is bad. And like this stuff is happening. People are doing this work. They're moving forward. So I want to know that Games Workshop is moving forward on this work, because if they think that they can post one thing 18 months ago and then come back and post this thing 18 months later, and they've not done anything internally to their shop to move forward, it's a problem. Like, to say nothing of like the fact that they haven't put anything more out for the community to move this work forward. Like, they need to be doing work internally, and hey, like, tell us about that. I mean, Games Workshop never tells anyone anything about their internal politics, but it'd be great if they like broke down that wall this time and was like, yeah, we know this is a deal. Like, we've posted that thing on Warhammer Community saying that hate has no place in Warhammer, and this is how we're doing better within our organization. Because, like, the other thing that came out when they posted Warhammer for Everyone was a Black British wargamer coming forward and sharing his experience of basically a microaggression by Tony Cottrell, head of Forge World, said it directly to this guy. And when Warhammer for Everyone came out, this wargamer like contacted Games Workshop and said, hey, this is my experience. What are you doing about this? And he never heard back. Like, I checked in with him probably about 6 months ago and he hadn't heard back. So
Yep.
that indicates to me that you can post all the fun, shiny things you want on 2 of your many social media channels, but you need to be doing the work internally because you need it. Like, that's what we see from that experience, that you have staff internally who could really use this training to understand what's not cool. Now I'll actually put my soapbox away. So yeah, that's not hobby, and this is supposed to be a hobby stream, but I don't really care. Because when people say that they come to Warhammer to escape, I understand that. I did some escaping this week playing video games. But the thing that I keep coming back to personally is that when it comes to stuff like diversity, inclusion, equity in the Warhammer community, the people who say that I come to this hobby to escape all that stuff are the people who never have to deal with it. They're white folks, they're privileged folks, they're probably male folks. They don't face this thing. They get to go into a Games Workshop and not have anyone ask them where they're from. But there are people who don't get to do that. There are people who, when they walk into Games Workshop, get a really weird treatment because they're female, or maybe because they're non-binary, or maybe because like they don't present the gender that people expect.
That's why I would be interested how people who have been affected badly by stupid behavior feel now about this statement.
Yeah, that'd be good. But what I'm trying to say is that the fact that we get to turn this stuff off when we walk into a Games Workshop is a privilege. And I'm here for the people who don't get to turn that off. The people who get weird questions when they walk into a Games Workshop. Those are the people that I care about, not the people who want to escape real world problems in their hobby. That's cool. You do you. But that's why I'm bringing this up, because I think it's an important thing to talk about. And I think that we're the guys who need to be having these conversations, us white dudes.
Yeah.
Because...
And I think to take this thought just a step further,
sure.
What they referred to was in their article was that Warhammer 40k is to be taken satirically, and you cannot have a satire without any real world thing.
Without a real world connection, you mean?
Yes. So I think this is like a cheap escape they do there. On the other side, it's for the very first time they announce how Warhammer is supposed to be read.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the thing that a lot of like the old guard have been defending. They've been saying this to people. They've been like, you know, Warhammer's a satire, right? So it's cool. You're right. That's a good point that I missed. That it's really cool that Games Workshop has officially clarified that 40k is satire.
What I read in someone's story was that, I'm sorry, I cannot remember who it was. Yeah. Someone said that it would be cool if that satire would come back into the thing, because you cannot read it. Like when you look at old orcs, you can read what they were meant to be, and but nowadays
like Goths,
everything is so for example,
like they're like
nowadays everything is so dead serious that you cannot see the smirking face behind the Space Marine design.
One of the things I love about this statement that I didn't mention earlier is that they talk about how grim dark 40k is, because I love that I don't love, in their statement they're like, oh yeah, 40k is grim, it's the grimmest of grim. And I feel like that's what like stupid neckbeards say when they're like trying to defend like their racist version of 40k. They're like, it's grim dark, man, I don't like any of these kid books that show my grimdark setting from a child's perspective. It's grimdark. So it's kind of funny that they're like, yeah, it's grimdark, but it's also satire, man.
They never read any of the Black Library books, because the Caiaphas Cain book, the books are just about taking the piss out of everything. He's basically like, I don't care about the system, I care about saving my own arse.
Hey, listen, as someone who never reads any Black Library, I can defend the right of stupid neckbeards to not read Black Library. But that's a good observation.
It's like it's in a lot of like the author's work and stuff. They will just put in there, and that's where they do it. Also, the other bit I just wanted to add in was like when you're saying about people, you say, "Oh, I want to escape in the hobby." Yeah, everyone wants to use the hobby to escape, and if the people who want to use it to escape are not able to escape what they're trying to escape,
the whole thing doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. It's like, how can they enjoy their hobby where they want to use it to escape from pressures of life and everything else if the people who are in that place where they're going to are not accepting of them, of who they are?
That's a very good point, Flynn.
You can't just go like,
to escape.
Because I know it's a spit, but it will stem back to being, it's that guy. Everyone's got that guy in their gaming club who they don't want to play against. You're going to have a group of people who don't want to go to your gaming club because they feel ostracized just as soon as they walk in the door. That you don't want to have that. It's all about reputation. One of the Games Workshops near me, he's like, even though I don't go up there very often, when I go up there, the store manager's welcoming, but that's his job. The other people in there are just like, you're not part of our normal group. I don't know how to react to you. I don't really like you.
Yeah, it's
so regardless, I'm not trying to say like, woe is me with this. I'm just like,
no.
If I'm able to experience that, I know that's no way near what everyone else
Yeah,
is
you're experiencing that,
experiencing.
and like you don't have to deal with like your identity. They're not rejecting you because of your identity. Imagine like that, like magnified by like, oh, your identity strikes me as different, and I don't know.
So it's just like for
And
me,
it's
it's like
so, yeah.
just
I think
treat
it's so sad because all those nerds, and I count myself into that aspect, are rejected so often. So
Yeah, like we're all nerds together. Like let's just be together in our nerdiness, man. Like why the fuck? Like I get you've been rejected before, but like it's not cool because you've been rejected you want to reject other people. That's how I feel about this shit. When people try and exclude people from Warhammer, it's like you've spent your life getting rejected for your nerdy hobby, and now you want to have a power play over someone else. So you want your nerdy hobby to be yours and yours alone. And now you're going to try and reject someone else from your nerdy hobby just to like take out your frustration of being rejected. Like learn from your experiences. Because you've had experience with being rejected from this nerdy hobby, maybe you should be welcoming of the next person who tries to join this nerdy hobby.
Yep,
rather than trying to tell them that they're a woman and they couldn't possibly have painted their own miniature or understand the lore or whatever. Like, forget it, man. Warhammer, I get that Warhammer is maybe the thing that accepted you, and now you're worried about losing it, but like accept someone else.
See, I was so taken aback by this whole discussion, because to me that is what this whole thing has always been about, and what I used to advocate to this hobby to people who didn't understand that. I've worked in a games workshop, and whenever you enter that store, if you wish to, you stop being whatever you've been before, and now you are what you want to be there by then. So we had like people working high in a bank down to, you know, I don't know, the lowest income group. It didn't really matter. Of course, you are totally right when you say that you have to pay for this shit and it doesn't pay itself. But we had people hanging out. Maybe they bought a box of model once a month from their salary at the start of the month, and then they would hang out in the store for the rest of the month, and they would play with people who, I don't know, would earn like triple of what they. I think I'm stumbling and I'm stuttering, but I think you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
So that was my Games Workshop experience, that it did not matter who you were.
And there are people who have those positive experiences and defend the status quo online by saying I'm not saying you're saying this, Hydra, to be clear.
Yeah.
But there are people online who have said this has never happened in front of me. I don't believe that it's actually a problem.
No.
And as people who probably don't live with the identities that might like trigger this kind of stuff, of course you're not going to experience this problem. But so you're very lucky you were at a Games Workshop that was very accepting. And if you are at a Games Workshop that has people from very different backgrounds and all that, and they are accepted, you are lucky. You are so lucky. And what you need to do is that if that ever shifts, if that ever changes, you need to fight tooth and nail for it. You got to defend it. And if some weird dude rolls up your Games Workshop and he starts making fun of someone because they look different, they act different, they choose different, you got to like call that dude out. Like that's how we preserve positive communities. The negatives also exist.
I'm just stumbling over that you should assume that you are lucky if you have that climate. I would turn it around. I would say this climate is for granted.
Ah, yes, you take it for granted.
Yeah, you should expect that when you go into a store that everyone is welcoming you, because that would have we have been told or trained as professional sellers that you should never judge a book from its cover, because of course you are interested in the wallet, but if you don't get to the person, you don't get to the wallet.
Yeah.
So I have worked in 5 different stores.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And I would say that this climate has been in each and every one of them.
Positive climate?
Yes.
Good.
This welcoming, open-minded.
Maybe Germany's just better at it. Maybe these issues come up in the UK. Maybe they're like a big American issue.
Maybe this is something that has changed in the past years. Maybe being a nerd has turned into something cool in the meantime.
Yeah.
I don't want to brag about it, but I have been recently approached by someone who's like unsure of their own identity. Yeah, I was approached and was told that I was the favorite teacher.
Good. That's awesome, buddy.
Where did that come from? Like, what did I do? And because I never thought about what I'm doing, I just did what I did.
Good.
Now I'm starting to understand that I combine different aspects. I've been to the army, and some boys look up to me and are like, well, you have been to the army, you must be a tough guy then, blah blah blah.
And you're like, no, I'm the biggest softie.
Yeah, I think sometimes that sort of gives an anchor to that one person. or they
Sure,
are
yeah.
unsure about that.
Yeah.
It is just slowly dawning to me why they feel safe around me.
Yeah, that's
And
great. That's a huge compliment, man. Good work.
yeah.
You're doing
Thanks.
something right. I think that could be very applicable to this conversation we're having about inclusivity in Warhammer, that you never know who's looking up to you. And if you're older, there could be younger people around, and you got to model like how they're supposed to act. So that's why I do the shit I do. Like, that's why I post stuff, I call shit out. Like, I try to show people that you can do cool shit in the hobby and like care about these issues, that you don't, like, I don't live with these issues. That doesn't matter, because I want people who do live with these issues to feel comfortable and safe and stuff. Like, I want to live this Warhammer for everyone thing. So that's why I do this shit. That's why I talk about it.
And I think this is a good point, because I have sometimes felt working at Games Workshop was more like being working as a social worker.
Oh,
Because I worked in a city where the average income was pretty low. So we had all those kids hanging out in the store after school with and they were not bringing any money, but they were hanging out there anyways. And they were talking to us. Of course you cannot talk all day long about Warhammer. Well, you can try, but that gets boring.
It gets awkward. You can only ask them, what are you not going to buy today? So many times.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think my biggest achievement at working at Games Workshop was that this one dude, at one point I realized he was really smart. He was there constantly. At one point, he was old enough to talk about his future.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I'm going to leave school next year because my father said I need to become a construction site worker. And I said, well, dude, think about that. Think about this idea again, because you are so smart. You're young and smart and ambitious. Yeah. And in the end, he came back after a while. He disappeared then. And after we had a few talks, and he came back at some point and said, well, I'm going for that higher education against the will of my parents.
Nice.
That's to say. Because you sort of have talked me into that. And that was where I thought, well, you can make on a very small scale a difference, even if you work part-time at Games Workshop.
There you go.
Because you have contact to the little kids, and they trust you because they look up to you, because you can, play with their little toy soldiers with them.
Yeah, I'm glad you were there doing that, because like you made an impact on people's lives. And this is what I'm trying to say, that like you don't have to work at Games Workshop, you don't have to be Simon. All of us have the capacity to make an impact on another hobbyist through just the bullshit you post on Instagram. It might not feel like it matters, but you have a chance to do something. So if you feel comfortable, speak up about these things, share them in your feeds, tell people that Warhammer is for everyone and like it's safe and you want everyone to be like in this hobby. And like you don't have to do it publicly on your feeds, just like do it in person. Like if you have a dude who makes a shitty joke about a woman, challenge him and be like, buddy, we've been friends for 20 years, that's not okay. Or we've been friends for 5 years, that makes me uncomfortable. Like you wouldn't say that to your sister, you wouldn't say that to your mom. Like just challenge this shit, because like that's how it's going to change. It's going to be white dudes stepping up and doing something about it. Anyway, I said I was going to put my soapbox away. I never did. I'm glad we had this conversation. Thank you.
Yep.
I think this will be a good stream to be the first one that we convert into a podcast, because apparently we talked about a lot of stuff. But I'm really glad that we had this talk today. Thank you for talking with me about it.
Or just go back and read Diana's post.
Diana said, as a woman, thank you for keeping the soapbox out. Oh, thanks, Diana. That means a lot. If you want more soapbox and you haven't seen it, I made a video called Sexy Warhammer Ladies on my channel. It's not what it sounds like. It was a situation that happened in the community where there was some shaming of women who were doing Warhammer and also having OnlyFans accounts. And I spoke to High Fleet Horror, I spoke to Norn Queen, and I spoke to, I can't remember Sarah's account name, a representative from No More Damsels, which is an organization that advocates for non-white male folks in hobby spaces and making like safe tournaments and stuff like that for other folks. So yeah, if you've never heard that episode, there's a video and there's also a podcast version of it. You're on my channel maybe already, and just search for Sexy Warhammer Ladies and it should come up with the it's a good name. It should come up with the video. I don't think anyone else's videos will come up if you search for it on YouTube. Only search for Sexy Warhammer Ladies on YouTube, or like if you go to my channel, there should be a playlist for Xenos Alchemist, which is the podcast, and you should be able to find it in there.
I'm just thinking of an ad pop up now saying "Sexy Warhammer ladies in your area."
Oh no!
So for making that really bad joke.
I really like what Johnny said.
Offensive.
Johnny said we have the privilege of being able to model better behavior. I really like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So thank you all for being a
like
part of
the fun
this.
as well. If you've enjoyed us, like the
Oh,
stream,
God.
share,
Friend, you're the best. Please like and subscribe. Hit the little bell button and you'll get a notification about new videos.
Yes.
And yeah, please like this video. Please subscribe.